Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Gospel and the Grind podcast. My name is Luke Englund, and the Gospel and the Grind is dedicated to showing a Christian worldview in the workplace, whether you're a CEO, a builder, or a barista. We want to show how the Christian worldview impacts us in our work and how we can expand the garden and take dominion in this world to the glory of God. I'm here with Brian Chan. Would you introduce yourself real quick?
Sure, Luke. Thanks for having me. I am the opposite of a serial entrepreneur. I started a business about 25 years ago. I'm still running it. I'm a CEO slash programmer for an enterprise open source company called Liferay. We have about 1,200 customers around the world. I love what I do, but also hate my job sometimes.
Awesome. Well, thank you for introducing yourself. And could you give a quick 2 to 3 minute summary of your story, your faith, and how you got to where you are right now?
So I'm first and foremost a Christian. And about 25 years ago, my pastor asked me to build a website for our church. I looked at the alternatives out there. They were way too expensive. So I just decided to roll something on my own in order to help my church. And then I thought, hey, if I spend 100 hours helping my church, that's basically hours down the drain. What if I built a framework that will cost me maybe 1,000 hours, but it'll cost me 10 hours to help the next church? So at some point in time, I'll make back my time. And so I concentrated working on that framework. And instead of spending 1,000 hours, I think I spent like 10,000 hours doing it. My church ended up never using it, but people around the world, secular companies started using it. And then we realized, oh, we have something here. And uh, we went the secular route instead of building websites for churches. And what we realized was the gift that we have is not just building websites for churches, but using the business that we have in order to spread a passion for God's glory. Mhm.
Awesome. So clearly you've got aspirations. If you could summarize your business aspirations into one sentence, like a company has a mission statement. This is Brian Chan's mission statement. What would that sentence be?
Okay. Okay. Let me just go my mission statement, and then we'll go to I'm not even sure how to do the company one, but let me just do mine. Okay. I just want to die faithful to Christ. That's my mission statement right now. Just because I've seen so many Christians that I've admired over the years who don't die faithfully. I just want to
Mm,
die faithfully. That's my mission
gotcha.
statement.
And so how does that apply into, that I can understand that applying into just a general sphere. What does that look like when it comes to business? When you walk into the office or when you work on your computer, your laptop, what does that look like dying faithful to Christ, bringing him glory when it comes to business?
Okay, I think of David when he had it easy, he sinned. Okay, so what do the scriptures say? It was time for kings. It was springtime. It was time for kings to go to war. So what did he do? He stayed at home. He didn't work. He looked out the window, right? And I believe that we're created to work. And when David was being chased by Saul, he was very faithful. So as far as work goes, I want to push myself to the limit and not let things be easy.
Mm. Yeah, that
So
reminds me
faith
of
is a means of staying faithful.
Gotcha. And so that reminds me of the Bible talks about, the if we have too much success or too much ease, we might forget God, and if we have too much
Yeah.
hardship, we might curse God.
Proverbs, right?
Yes.
Proverbs, right? Don't,
Yeah.
pray that you're not too rich that you forsake God, or too poor that you have to steal.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's
Or
going to
was
be
it
seasons of,
Ecclesiastes? Was it Ecclesiastes or Proverbs? Anyways, one of
I
the
believe it's
two.
Proverbs. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, but you see, Ecclesiastes also talks about there's seasons for different things. There's
Yep.
seasons where life is not going to be as easy. But those seasons can also bless us in our faith, and they can also challenge us, and they can prompt us to move on and to look to
Yep.
Christ. So yeah, one of the things that I'm passionate about is and we want to portray in this podcast is that work came before the fall, and work is not a
Yep.
product of the fall. So man by nature is a worker, and
Yep.
we're also image bearers of God. And so what does it mean to bear the image of God? Well, I think one thing at least is that God is a ruler, God is a king, and he creates Adam and he sets Adam up as
Yep.
a rule over the garden, or you could call him a vice regent or a steward. And so, as Christians, we have a duty to steward and to basically be faithful of what God has given us. So, dying faithful to Christ, part of being faithful to Christ, who is the maker of the world, being
Mhm.
faithful to God is to basically be faithful with what He has given us. And so we can, even if you are faithful and you don't commit adultery through your whole life, but if you don't
Mhm.
accomplish anything with what God has given you, we see how, Christ in his parable about the 10 talents, just bearing your talent.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could say, well, I'm not sinning. I'm not doing anything
Yeah.
wrong. Are
No,
you
no,
really
no. When
doing?
I say dying faithfully, it does
Yeah.
mean taking the 5 talents and not making it 6, but making it 10, right?
Mm, yeah,
I do mean
exactly.
that.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's like where, faithfulness to God, we look at it and we're like, this is also it's also multiplying what God has given us. And it's not, I think it's easy to think of faithfulness to God of like, don't sin, go to church, but business is an area of our life, work is an area of our life where we're actually created to work, and it's so central to our being.
Amen.
So,
Amen,
yeah.
brother.
How would you define
And,
success? So, like, success is a big part of being in business. It's a big word in the business world. But for you as a Christian, like, how do you define that word, success? What is a
um,
successful?
really successful. I know it sounds so weird. Maybe it's my stage in life. If you invent something new, I'm gonna sound very like vanity, vanity, vanity. But if you invent something new, there's really nothing new under the sun, right? I mean, you can invent an iPhone, you can go to Mars, right? Like you can do things that haven't been done, but the Bible still says it's been done. And it's going to be outdone and it's going to be forgotten, right? So whoever did the railroads, whoever did electricity, whoever did the steam engine, whoever came up with the first bow and arrow, whoever came up with iron swords, right? The chariot, they are forgotten, right? So what does it mean to be, what is success? It's uh the end of Ecclesiastes, right? Hey, you're faithful to God, you've listened to his commandments, and you want to obey. I really think that's what it is.
Mm,
It's not inventing something. It's not building something and selling it. It's not it's being faithful to God.
yeah, and like fear God and keep His commandments, and for this
Yes.
is the duty of man. Yeah, and
Yes.
that's coming from Solomon, a very successful man in a lot of ways. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, as creatures, we ultimately don't even create things. Now, we can be creative and image God and being creative with things that He's given us, but we can't create anything out of nothing. And
Ex nihilo. Yeah.
yeah, ex nihilo, we can't do anything. We can put pieces together and create new things, or put things together to get to different places and stuff. But ultimately, we can't create anything out of nothing. But even being creators is an interesting way that we can reflect God. But ultimately, though, the what is the duty of man that really lasts into eternity? Like, what is the duty of man that really carries on eternal weight and eternal value? And it's
So
you know,
this it's gonna be so weird, but there are nights when I go to sleep and I close my eyes and just go, and I just like embrace Jesus, and I go, oh, sweet Jesus. And I actually think that's of more value than anything that I actually do. It
wow,
reminds me of the lady that just sat there in front of Jesus while her sister, Martha, no, which one was the one who worked
Martha,
a lot?
Mary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Martha is one I think who worked a lot.
Yes, yes. Mary chose the wiser thing. And so I work my butt off throughout the day because God created me to work. I love order. But at the end of the day, there are moments, 30 seconds, where I'm just sitting at Jesus' feet. And that's actually more valuable.
So
And
what is
I'm not a lazy person. Okay.
so what is just I want to dig deeper into that. What does your prayer life look like as a businessman? Like, how does prayer impact your day to day life?
I am terrible at it. I am not. I don't wake up at 5 a.m., pray for 3 hours before the start of my day like Martin Luther or whoever else. I don't do that. I wake up, I sweep the house, and then I open my Bible, which is just my phone, for 5 minutes, maybe 10, and I'll read one chapter. But by God's grace, like I actually get a lot out of it. And I've been doing it. There's this one Japanese exercise. You're supposed to do like a 4 minute exercise in like 30 seconds, 20 seconds intense running and then 10 seconds off, 20, 10, 20 off. It's like for 4 minutes. I've basically been doing that, the spiritual version of that for the last 20 some years. And by God's grace, it's been fruitful. Um, I do a lot of Nehemiah prayers. Remember when Nehemiah prayed right before he talked to the king? But I do have moments of deeper prayer. But I'm not like your super disciplined guy for that.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Okay, I'm just being honest. I'm
Yeah.
not. But I
Yeah.
it's something
Uh,
to grow in.
for sure. Yeah. And I don't know, is there really many people on this earth that actually are satisfied with their prayer life? It's it's something we can all, I think, or most of us probably should make more time for. But yeah, tell me more real quick about Liferay, about your company and what it does.
Okay, so we build a software platform that large enterprises use to build customer portals, partner portals, websites. So, one example, one of our clients would be like HP. Okay, so HP printers. Okay, so they make the printer, they sell it at some store, and then people make ink cartridges. Okay. Now that same model applies to Gulfstream airplanes. Okay. Let me switch to Gulfstream. That's a cooler example. We love HP also as a customer, but Gulfstream's a good one also. So you have seats on an airplane. Okay. It's not like you can just take that seat out and put any random seat you want, because that would affect the airplane, right? Like they have rules around what kind of seat you can put in this plane. Those rules are ridiculously complex, right? Depending on which country you're in, blah, blah, all this stuff. So companies could build it all from scratch. They could try to vibe code this. It's not going to work. Okay. So they use our platform and they save like 80% of their cost by building on top of Liferay and running it on Liferay. So that's what we do.
Hmm. That's awesome. And so, looking at, we talk about, God has given us dominion over the earth. He's given us stewardship over the earth, and there's a world out there. And what does it mean to take dominion? I mean, it's we're basically stewarding what He has given us, bringing order to the world. God is a God of order. So when you look at your work, and someone says like, "This is what you do," how does it bring any value or worth to God? Like even just on a temporal plane, what would you say to that
Mhm.
person? How
Okay.
your work brings value to the world and glorifies God?
Okay. So 80% of what I do is reviewing code that I don't even write. And we have a couple hundred developers, some from India, some from California, some from Spain, some from Brazil, some from Japan, all over the world, different cultures. And you can see it in the streets of those countries. The cultures are very different, and the code that I get is very different. And it becomes this gigantic jumbo mess. And my job every day is to bring order to this chaos. And I tell you, Luke, it is so ridiculously painful. And every day I want to quit my job. I tell God, God, this is so painful. And then I remember, Brian, it's because you ate the fruit that I told you not to. I'm like, yes, you're right. And you're constantly reminding me of that, and you're good. And then throughout the day, there's like 5 to 10 minutes of a glimmer of hope where everything ties in together. And it's like, oh, wow, this is beautiful. Like, oh, this works. This is going to save our customers tons of time and money. Wow. You know? And then,
Hmm.
and then I'm satisfied. And then I go to sleep and I sleep well. Right. And then the next day it happens again, and I'm beat up and I'm discouraged. And then I have to be re-encouraged in Christ.
So, you're talking about it being difficult at times. What keeps you going? Like, why do you continue to do this?
I continue to do this because I feel like I was made to do it. I feel purpose for it. Um, oh, I just recently read this video from the Google guy who quit because he wanted to be retired because he wanted to do some physics thing. And basically said it was the worst decision of his life. And then the AI stuff called him back, and now Google is doing great. I forgot which, if it was Larry or Sergey, one of the two Google founders. And I pondered that. I was like, okay, you just keep at this. You just keep fighting, But we're built to work. And my dad, who retired, I think in his 40s, he had some pharmacies. He's sold them, and I saw the trajectory of his life from his 40s to now when he's 80, and I don't want that trajectory for
Hmm.
myself.
What kind of trajectory do you want?
I want a trajectory where I am adding uh, value to society, but
Hmm.
ultimately, so in the service itself, right? I'm providing a service, right? Uh, whether it's at Liferay or not, I'm gonna work till the day I die. Okay, I'm gonna provide a service, right? I just can't imagine ever retiring. Like, yeah, that just seems
Hmm.
like so bad. But that service points to God in its beauty and glory, like a holio. You know what I'm talking about in Exodus 30, right? God gives them the spirit to do beautiful things.
Yeah.
And everything that I touch, I want to ultimately point to the glory of God.
Mm.
That's what I want. And then and then when I die, I'll get to see Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, like, just to add on to that, the hands that God has given us, the breath that God has given us, it's all from God. And those are other things we want to steward and we want to use well for good. And so, yeah, we want to put those things into things that glorify God and to give glory to God. And one of those things is pursuing excellence. Like if we have a God who is great, I think about Daniel, where it talks about, there's in Daniel chapter 11, it says, those who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits, something like that. And if we have a great God and if we recognize the glory of God, I think we're going to be more ambitious. Like there's not, there's not a place where you start seeing the glory of God more and more and more and then you're like less and less caring about being ambitious. I think those things are actually going to be synced up with each other. That the more you see the glory of God, the more ambitious you're going to be because how can I not do great things for this God from the power of God? Using God's energy that He gives to us, and just trying to
Uh,
bring glory to God.
yeah, related to that, I'm functionally becoming a post mill.
Mm,
That's what I'm functionally doing that. Theologically, I'm still wrestling with it, but I'm acting like that. I'm I'm subduing the world.
yeah. For those who don't know necessarily what that means, could you just describe that real quick and what that means?
Uh Things on earth get very, very, very bad, and then Jesus comes back, or the church's job is to make the earth very, very good and then present it to Jesus. And then he comes back.
That's awesome. So, I've got another question for you. This is more on advice. So, if a young man approaches you and says, "Hey, I want to start a business," what advice are you going to give him?
Uh this is gonna sound really weird, but fire people. Uh
Hmm,
Fire people quickly. Don't try to be gracious because that will actually hurt them more. That's basically what I've learned in the last 20 years.
hmm,
Okay, let me give it spiritualize it with some verses. Okay. John 15, right? So you have a vine. What does the gardener do? Right? Prunes it, right? So if you drink good wine, you look at where the grapes came from, and a gardener sees a small grape and a big grape, and they'll cut the small grape to make sure that the bigger grape has bigger has more water, more nutrients, and it grows bigger. But as Christians, whenever we see that, like I would have 10 people working for me and I'd have one person who's doing really poorly. What would I do? The nurturer in me says, pour all your energy to the weak person. No. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to cut the weak person from the team and pour your energy on the best person. That
Hmm.
sounds so unchristian, but it's actually way more Christian than this sympathetic, empathetic way of doing things. Why?
Hmm.
Because you free the person who's not good at what he's doing. Let's say he's not good because he's lazy. Well, you've just taught them a lesson. Let's say
Hmm.
they're not good at your job because of fit. They're a giraffe trying to act like a rabbit. Well, great. Make them go do giraffe things and not rabbit things.
Hmm.
You've freed him up instead of making a giraffe spend an extra year trying to be a rabbit, right?
Hmm.
So the key thing is fire people quickly. So like one part of my main job now is I identify people who should not be working for me and I fire them far
Hmm.
more quickly than I would have in the past.
Hmm.
I know it
That's
sounds
awesome.
really strange, but that's my advice. That's
That's
what I would
good.
tell myself 20 years ago.
That's good advice. Yeah, and I think that's a great, principle there to see, like, if our Father does this, in a spiritual way, there's certainly maybe a principle we can learn there of, there is a principle there, to be learned in the gardener example of pruning the vine, and even in the church, we see there are gifts. I mean, the Bible explicitly rejects an egalitarian, treat everyone, give everyone the same things, and like basically this view that people don't have different gifts, people don't have different specialties, that people.
Have you ever interviewed missions agencies and then you would have like four people in front of you and you're like, wow, three of these guys are idiots. They shouldn't be on the field. Why haven't they been fired? It's because well, one, when they raise support, a percentage of that money goes back to the missions agency. So they have no incentive to fire them
Hmm.
because they're getting a cut. Two, we try to be so nice and coddly that we enable these guys who shouldn't be in that position doing stuff they shouldn't be doing.
Hmm.
Anyways, that's an extreme example.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did that. I did that for years and I hurt people instead of freeing them. And I've had people whom I fired who actually the first guy that it took me for 2.5 years, my partner in the business said, dude, you got to fire this guy. And the thing that finally made me fire him was he was constantly late to work. So then I asked him, hey, why are you late to work? And he said to me, I'm jet lagged. I said, you're jet lagged? When'd you go? Where'd you go? Oh, I went to XYZ country. And I said, when did you go there? Oh, when I was in high school. He's not in high school at the time. Okay. At, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me.
He's
I
hanging on
fired
to
him.
that still. Wow.
Yes. Okay. That's how bad I was. Okay. And a week or two later, he thanked me. He ended up doing a different job that fit his lifestyle choices and his bets. A place where you didn't have to be on time, you know? Anyways, that's one extreme example.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's really interesting. And I, again, just applying this with, like, we talk about concepts in the church like leadership. And we got to recognize as Christians, not everyone is equally gifted with the ability to lead. I mean, the Bible, Romans 12 talks about, to the one who leads, lead with zeal, the person who has that gifting to lead.
Yeah.
And that's, so not everyone is at the same level of excellence at every single thing. They're not. And so
Yeah.
recognizing that is not necessarily a flaw. It's actually part of God's design. God has made people differently. And so it's not wrong to recognize people have different strengths, people have different talents. If you take that away, where's competition? There's no competition. There's no competitiveness. And especially as men, we thrive in competitive environments where it's friendly competition, like who can do the best, who can do better. That's not an ungodly thing to have competition
Yeah.
and to strive for the best. You look at the way people used to, educate. In some ways you would find, you'd find one Alexander the Great and pour your life into that student. Whereas the other extreme of that is you see, give everyone the same education and pour your same energy into every single student. And I'm not saying, we shouldn't try to give everyone a chance for success, but I'm saying it's not wrong to recognize people have gifts. And how do we pour into those people who have gifts and recognize their
Yeah.
talents,
I've been
You-
far too egalitarian my whole life. I
Hmm.
hate it. It's like I totally regret it. Even though I've been a complementarian on paper my whole, for decades, but I just acted like a functional egalitarian. It was terrible.
Yeah, and it's a flattening of the world where instead of recognizing there are differences in the world and there's nothing wrong with recognizing that, and was saying, hey, you might be more gifted at this other job than this job. So yeah. One last question, just to kind of wrap this up. How has your faith, this is very broad, but how has your faith influenced your approach to business decisions? It could be an example that you want to share, or it could just be, something about faith that you believe that sets your approach to business apart. It sets it apart from your average person who does not believe in God, does not believe in Christ, their approach to business. So how has faith influenced your approach to business decisions?
Um, One of the verses that I think it's Hosea. It's like where it says like, "Behold, the work of we idolize the work of our hands," and God's like, uh." And a lot of entrepreneurs, their business is a reflection of them, and you end up relying on the work of your hands. So one of the difference is I rely on God. I pray. I've been in binds where God has miraculously like rescued, you know, many times. I'm like, wow, that was weird.
That's awesome. Well, so any final exhortation to listeners, final exhortation to people who are aspiring businessmen or people who want to make an impact in this world?
Yeah, vanity, vanity. Read Ecclesiastes. Yeah, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to make an impact for the world, read Ecclesiastes. And then there's a book I would really recommend. It's from a guy named Douglas Wilson. It's called, oh man, I forgot the name of the book. It has the word tethered in it, but it's a book on Ecclesiastes. Find his book on Ecclesiastes. I read it once every couple years.
And why the book of Ecclesiastes?
I the first time I read it on a plane, and it blew my mind. I was like, wow, I've never read Ecclesiastes this way. And I feel like entrepreneurs, in a way, are trying to find a name for themselves. And if there's a sin in entrepreneurship, it's that, right?
Hmm.
It's the Tower of Babel sin, right? I mean, being an entrepreneur is not intrinsically sinful. Just like being a worship leader is not intrinsically sinful. But well, I'm not a worship leader. I don't have to worry about everybody staring at me while I'm leading people into worship, right? So a worship leader is going to have certain sins that they deal with more than me who can't keep a beat. But as an entrepreneur, you're going to have a certain bent for sinning like the Tower of Babel. So what's the way to counter that? It's the book of Ecclesiastes.
So it's where
Yeah.
are you directing? Are you seeking glory for God or seeking glory for self? And are you seeking
Yeah.
excellence for the sake of bringing honor to God's name and stewarding well His creation and enjoying it, like enjoying the creation He's given us, or
Yes.
is it
Yes.
simply let's just do this for the sake of my name being spread?
Yeah. And that's how I see it when I look at my friends who are not Christians and they're like trying to start business. It's really all for their own glory. There's like no other reason for it.
Well, that's a great reminder, Brian, to seek the glory of God in everything we do. So I hope everyone listening enjoyed this podcast. And Brian, thank you so much for joining. And with that, we'll end there. And we'll hope to see you guys next time on the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke.